Team India has landed in South Africa for a Test, ODI and T20 series. Perhaps for the first time, there will be 3 captains for 3 teams. What does one expect in this series and why should you watch it? Let's find out from none other than former South African captain Faf Du Plessis, who joins me right now. Faf, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast. All of India would want to know that there is a big rumor about you if you are going to come back to international cricket, returning through the T20 World Cup or not.
Thank you for having me. I suppose it's a little bit more than a rumor because I was the one that was speaking about it, but I was just talking about the possibility around coming back next year. There's that possibility. So hopefully everything can work out in that sense and can be back and playing international cricket again.
That's lovely news. You are also playing in Morrisville Swamp Army. It is a T10 format. Is it to keep yourself fit for the upcoming T20 season?
Yeah, I had an operation about 3 months ago on my elbow, which has been something that's been bothering me for a while. So the T10 was the tournament we felt that was a good comeback into playing cricket again. Not too hectic, not too long. Just almost a tournament where I can just find my feet again and be out there playing some cricket. And then in January, I do have the South African T20 League, where I'll be playing for the Joburg Super Kings. And then obviously the big one after that will be the IPL.
Absolutely. We will talk to you about the IPL a little later. But first, let's talk about the moment that, every Indian fan are talking about right now, that the Indian team has reached South Africa. Are you itching to play this series against India? I know you have retired, but what is it like?
Yeah, it's a great tour. And obviously knowing quite a few of the Indian guys now as well, I know that they love going to the country of South Africa, the culture and the food. But obviously the cricket will be the main topic. And I think India has got a really strong touring team that will visit South Africa. South Africa, on the other hand, is a little bit, when it comes to the test team, there's quite a bit of young guys getting an opportunity. So who better than to try and test yourself out against the strong Indian cricket team that's done so well over the last year?
Faf, India has 3 captains for 3 formats. South Africa has 2 captains for 3 formats in this series. Would you say both teams are at an experimental stage, and can you call one of them clear favourite?
I think India certainly goes with a test team that's a little bit more experienced. South Africa is finding its way around, introducing some new players into that test team. There's 2 new coaches that's taken over. So similar with the split captaincy of the split coaching in South Africa as well. So Shukri Conrad, the test coach, he's only been in the job for maybe 6 months to 9 months, so also very new. So I think the challenge for South Africa is the amount of test matches that they play. I think 4 or 5 test matches they've got scheduled for the year, which is not a lot. In order to get better at test cricket, you need to play more of it. So I think South Africa has got a very good bowling attack. I think if the Proteas will do well, they'll have to score some runs because obviously India comes with some really powerful batters that's travelled South Africa before and done really well.
Faf, India has never won a test series in South Africa. What would it take for them to get over the line this time around?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the 2 test match series that's going to be there. I feel like if you play in those test series, just when you sort of get the series on the way and everyone's almost anticipating for the main meal, then the test series is over. So winning the first one would be key. I would say if you can start the series well, it makes a huge difference. So that will be the target for both teams, trying to make sure in a short test match series like that is, that they put their best foot forward in that first day.
Well, both India and South Africa had a high-octane encounter during the Cricket World Cup. How difficult, Faf, will it be for both the teams, some of the players, to focus on another, pretty much high-octane series shortly after the World Cup? Both the teams had already peaked during the World Cup and now will be expected to peak once again?
Yeah, that is a big challenge. I remember going through a similar experience myself as a cricketer when we went through the highs and the lows of the 2015 World Cup. And pretty much straight after that the heartache that you have to deal with, it takes a bit of time. It's like a breaking up with a girlfriend. You don't just get over it straight away. So, India was so amazing the way they played in this World Cup. They were unbelievable the way they went about their business. But they would be feeling in a similar way. They'd be feeling heartbroken that was their World Cup to win. So that will take a bit of time. Time heals everything. So your first series back, it does feel like a little bit, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. But obviously there's some quality players there and some experienced players that I'm sure would help manage the young guys especially well.
Faf, since you told us just now that you have been through the highs and lows and you've seen it with the South African team, what is that one advice you would give to any of the youngster, be it Indian or South African, who has just come through the heartbreak of the World Cup?
Yeah, I would say focus on the style of cricket that they played. So, I look at India from an outside perspective, and I was very impressed. Leading into the World Cup, I didn't think that India would almost go about their business in the way that they did. There was a lot of people that was talking about India needs to adopt a more aggressive approach in white ball cricket. So they've been talking about it for a while, but this for me was really the first time where I could see it on full display, and that made them a very dangerous team. So I would encourage them to say, I feel that the way that they're playing right now is the way that it will bring them some silverware along the line. They're just going to make sure they keep doing that. Obviously, every series that they play now is an opportunity for a person that's probably not always a starting 11 player. So those opportunities needs to be taken with both hands, especially if you're a younger player.
Faf, though the series starts with the T20s and then the ODIs, but the real deal probably will be the 2 test matches which are a part of the World Test Championship. Now, with the World Test Championship, also there is a tag of winning the title over 2 years' time. How difficult is it to keep the intensity or the momentum up over, a cycle of 2 years?
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing that they brought in those the Test Championship, because it does then feel like you don't play in those Test matches where you almost feel like it doesn't mean anything. And not that players play the game of Test cricket where not every series is important, but you do sometimes in a Test career feel like when you are 3-0 up or something in that, then you can just have a little bit of a rotate your team or rest some key players. So obviously with the Test Championship, it's really changed that, because every single Test match that you play becomes very important, and especially away points. So for India, going to South Africa, the amount of Test Championships would be more value in South Africa than it would be when they were playing at home.
Faf, India goes into the Test series with Mohammad Shami, but he's carrying an ankle injury to South Africa. How big a factor will it be for India in their quest to win their maiden Test series there?
Yeah, he's a quality bowler, isn't he? I remember facing him as well in 2018. He's just an all-round great bowler. He's one of those bowlers where you need someone like him in those South African conditions, because he's the type of bowler that never really gives you bad balls. He's on around that off stump the whole day, swinging the ball both ways, but more importantly is the length that he bowls. I think in South Africa it's just a little bit fuller because there's so much bounce. The seamers that does well in South Africa always bowls a little bit fuller. If I can go back from the guys that I played with, Vernon Philander, Dale Steyn, those guys were guys that pitched the ball up, and Mohammad Shami is certainly one of them.
Faf, let's talk a little bit about the 2 senior citizens in the Indian team, Rohit and Virat. Both of them sitting out of the T20s with a few matches to go for the World Cup. We know Rohit will be captaining the side during the World Cup, but do you see Virat a part of the T20 Cricket World Cup?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly if you look at, players, when they look at the scheduling right now, those kind of players will look at T20 World Cup as not being too far away. So it feels within their reach. I think if you start talking about the next 50 over World Cup, that's when players perhaps will go, that looks like a long way away. And maybe that's something that they don't see themselves getting to in terms of that. But knowing Virat very well, as I know that he plays the game to win trophies, so he wouldn't want to miss out on an opportunity in that T20 World Cup to get a World Cup trophy. I mean, that's why we play the game, and he was so close this time around. And Rohit would be no different. I thought they were both excellent in the World Cup at home, and they would want to make sure that they're there again.
Faf, if we talk about this series, India versus South Africa, tell us 2 X factors that you think from both the teams, India and South Africa. 2 X factors, possibly.
Yeah, I think Marco Jansen for South Africa, I think he's come heaps and bounds with his cricket. He's tall, he's got a really good wrist, so he swings the ball and he bowls the right areas as well. So I think certainly from a batsman perspective, he's one of the guys that I wouldn't want to face too much. And then obviously from a batting perspective, I think the way that Virat has done in South Africa would be that experience. I remember he scored a brilliant 100 at Wanderers the one year where he left the ball alone really well. And I think that will be the key for the experience that they have around those conditions, is making sure that they understand there's a different method into being successful in South Africa and the way that you bat. And that requires a little bit more discipline, especially around the off stump, leaving the ball alone, which is something in India that you don't have to do as much. But there's some great experience in that team. So I assume that they will do pretty well.
Let's talk a little bit about IPL before I let you go. Faf, we are expecting to see you at the auction table on the 19th of December. Talking about your team, RCB's fate has been much like Team India. Despite having played some high-intensity cricket, you haven't managed a title. What needs to change this time around?
Yeah, I mean, look, we looked after last season. We had a few areas where we felt like we needed to improve. Certainly in terms of personnel, to try and make us a stronger team. So one of the areas that we spoke about was getting a strong middle order batter in. So that's why from an auction process, the guys felt like we needed to release some money to make sure that we go into the auction having the option of buying one of the best options around in that role. So for us, it worked out really well. The Cameron Green trade, obviously with Mumbai, he was at the top of our list in terms of the type of all-rounder that we were looking at. Chinnaswamy, someone that is tall, that can hit the ball hard, but also from a bowling perspective, that gets that extra bounce in those conditions. And then obviously from Josh Hazelwood is a very important player to us, but fortunately he's expecting his first baby, so he's not available for the full tournament, and therefore needed to let him go there. But it's so a big focus for us around the auction table, I suppose, would be just making sure we get some quality bowling in from an overseas perspective, but also 1 or 2 Indian bowlers.
Well, all the best for you at the auction table, and hope RCB is able to cross the finish line this time around. And we are also waiting for your return to international cricket. Thank you very much, Faf, for joining us at this hour.
Thank you. Have a good day.